I started at C&C just over a year ago, and I've been working full-time on this. And when I say full-time, this, last year has been, how can I describe it? Huge.
We bid the project through the Homes and Community Agencies framework, and that was bid back in sort of August, September 2013, and I was still on maternity leave then, which is how I date it all. So I came back in the office sort of end of September that year and picked up the project then.
I suppose we've been almost like a client friend, a trusted advisor who we've worked a lot with, Central Assessment, Julia and Daniela and Ron and Caroline, just helping them through the process, giving them advice on how to structure Dora House, the redevelopment of Dora House, on how the best way to approach the planning, how to approach the land, how to approach the kind of structure of the deal to make it happen.
We provide specialist cost advice to clients really from inception through to completion. So we come in very early, look at the viability of projects. So we will look at the costs, and we will try and advise the client very early on in the design process to set sort of a cost budget for the scheme.
We're also the lead consultants on the project, so we've employed both the architects and the landscape architect. We have provided structural and building services engineering design and advice. We've also provided fire engineering, acoustics, transport planning, construction management, ecology, some environmental impact assessment, screening. So lots and lots of different disciplines, and my role has been to kind of pull together and coordinate all that little lot.
So we got involved with Daniela very early in December, and they basically wanted us to come up very quickly with some sort of feasibility cost estimates. We've limited them information, which is what we're good at. We're good at that.
I was overwhelmed, to say the least, in terms of the amount of work that needed to be done. And also I was quite sceptical, because I said, this is a huge regeneration project. This is massive, and look at the size of C&C. I mean, this is beating more than they can chew and taking it to another level. So the first few days I said, wow, now I need to do this, but how am I going to do it? I really was skeptical, and I said, this is not going to happen. And then I started talking to people around C&C. So I talked to the directors, I talked to colleagues, and what was amazing was the passion and how everybody believed they could actually do it. And then I spoke to the architects. I spoke to Ryder, and they were completely bought in onto this. And then I went to the first meeting with the Dora designers on the residents. And I said, when they say they do co-design, okay, it's the usual thing, ticking a box about residents consultation. But actually, they meant it. They were bought in, they were actually involved in the design and coming up with ideas and doing workshops, etc. So basically, by the end of, let's say, week 2, I was completely bought in. And I said, yes, we can do it.
I've spent probably a little more time than I normally would on a project of this scale. But just getting into the nuts and bolts of it, getting involved in the design process, going to all of the design team meetings. It is hugely time consuming. And we've been managing and I suppose driving through the preparation of the planning application, advising on what that's going to look like, what needs to go into it, issues that we need to address through the planning application.
Some cost consultants will just advise on cost, but we try to advise on buildability issues as well. So the design team, the engineer might come up with a certain design, and we will challenge that, and we'll say, well, actually, if you put that in front of a contractor, they will see this risk involved in that. They might see a program risk, and it might take longer to build, therefore it's more costly. How about, have you looked at building it this way or designing it that way? And actually that will potentially save some time in the program, make it more buildable.
And so we had endless meetings, all sat down, all throwing ideas on basically we need to deliver create communal spaces, for example, both indoors and outdoors on Lodge Road. So how are we going to do it?
And they're huge meetings. And early on, they covered when the design was being developed, they covered everything. So you were there for hours in this room, and you get to know people quite well when you're stuck in a room with them for 3 or 4 hours at a time.
We're both designing residences, so in the end, the scale and form and response to that has similarity, but they're very distinct architectural solutions to the brief.
I think Daniela is the bridge between those two teams as well. She was actually one of those people that was instrumental in bringing everyone together, and I think at the point that she arrived on the project, it really the project team, the design team, really started to gel. And then from that, it was okay, so we need 2 buildings, we need people to design those 2 buildings, let's go and get some architects, we need some technical information to inform the design and the construction of those, let's get a construction team. So gradually that whole project team has been built up from a very basic strategy that was formed early on.
So for Lodge Road, our engineering team have been in Newcastle, and there's been about 8 of them, not full-time, but part-time certainly. We've probably had 5 or 6 on the building engineering side in London, 2 from fire, a couple from acoustics, a couple from transport planning. 1 guy did the construction management plan, so a lot of people.
It's all about kind of placemaking and making an environment that suits the needs of everyone. And sometimes if you have one architect that works across the whole development, they're very regimented in their view of things. And at the end of the day, you rely on people, And I think the benefit of having different practices, that you almost get those hundreds of years of changes and nuances that you get around London. You kind of condense it into a very short period of time, and what you do is you get architects that might be interested in different fields or different architectural styles and typologies, and they almost amalgamate it into one place.
But we have a little bit of to and fro as well, because they might say, John, if we do this, which saves a little bit of money, can we do this somewhere else? Which might add a little bit of money, so there's a bit of swings and roundabouts as well. So obviously we involve C&C on that process. But that's what it's all about. It's trying to save money where you don't need to spend it, and spend it where you do need to spend it to add value.
Everybody throws their point of view at the table, and it's about reaching a common solution, which is generally is a bit of both, because you hear both arguments, and then you say actually the best way is the middle way. We take a bit of that and a bit of that, and then you get something that is almost perfect.
And then through that natural kind of collaboration process, certain elements of maybe the 2 projects start to kind of talk to each other, although they're very uniquely designed different buildings. There's maybe elements of, for example, the balconies where we've got this kind of metalwork detailing. Those sort of pieces of over the month started to kind of almost have a dialogue with each other. So there's a kind of visual connectivity, but still having 2 unique buildings.
I don't do my best work unless I believe in a project, and this one is easy to believe in. You see the building they're in now, and you can absolutely buy into the usefulness, the social usefulness of re-providing that accommodation.
Housing associations have now become more and more like private sector organisations, where they've lost their touch and their soul, and it's about achieving those bottom line. They've forgotten what the purpose is. But at C&C, this is very much still at the top of the agenda. Residents and the well-being of the residents, and giving them a home where they really want to live. That is the main thing. And everything else, it's all, on the side.